What does a pink goat and breast cancer have in common? In this episode, you will learn the real story behind the Rose's Pink Goat Society and how one woman's tragic ending meant the life for so many. Brooke Baugh always thought her mother was diagnosed at an early stage. So imagine her shock when she learned, at her mother's funeral, that early detection had not been available to this person she loved more than anything in life. Brooke said knowing what she knows now meant a whole career change for her, and now she has a new life committed to advocacy and service. When you subscribe to our show, you help us grow. Someone you know may need to hear this story, so please share with your family and friends. And consider supporting our mission. Your donation can help save the life of an uninsured woman. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. Brooke, thank you so much for being with us here today. Our connection has just been one of my favorite stories, and it doesn't happen often. You get an email out of the blue that says there's someone you should meet, and that was such a gift for me to have a chance to talk with you back then and for you to be on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Brooke, your history with the Rose goes back, do you realize, almost 2 decades?
Yes.
And lots of things were coming together at the time when you were introduced to the Rose. And I will tell you, in our life, it was one of the most incredible times. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But tell us how you first got involved with the Rose.
So I first knew about the Rose. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2004, and you all helped to diagnose her and take care of her. And unfortunately, my mom found the Rose, and it was too late for her. She did lose her battle. My sister at the time was 24 when my mom was diagnosed, and she also felt that she had a lump, and so started coming to the Rose at that time at 24, and still at 44. Gets her mammograms here every single year. Yes, she's a teacher and an amazing teacher. But yes, so I was first introduced to the Rose by my mom's story.
Mm-hmm. And now your mom had retired from...
So
where was it that she had worked for so many years?
So my mom worked for Shell Oil. She was an accountant, and my sister and I were grown. My parents were no longer married, and she wanted to do something for herself for the first time in her life, and so started a small business, went back to school to get a different master's degree in something that, was a passion for her, and during that time found a lump. She didn't share a lot of her story with my sister and I at the time. What she told us was, we caught it early. I don't want you girls to worry. She didn't want us to come to her appointments with her. She said, I want our time together to be happy, and I want to, yes. And so looking back, we know she didn't catch it early, and it was a protection mechanism for her, not the way that my sister and I would have liked to have had that journey. But I think that, in hindsight, the moment where everything changed for me was at my mom's funeral. Dr. Melillo attended my mom's funeral and came up to my sister and I, told us how sorry she was that we lost our mom, and said, you girls need to be vigilant about your annual screenings. And I said to her, oh, I know, because you caught moms early. And I'll never forget that moment. It's like one of those moments where everything kind of stops around you but then starts spinning, because I could see the look on her face that what I thought was the truth was not the truth about my mom's journey. And so she said, we did not catch your mother's early. By the time she came to us, it had metastasized. Not that it was too late, but just said, it was very advanced stage. So be sure that you girls are vigilant about your screenings.
What a moment that had to have been. But now when she told you, of course, you're a young woman, and she didn't want you to worry.
Correct.
But did you during that time
Oh, my
worry
gosh.
at all?
So I can vividly remember, so I was 29, I had 2 children working, just the tornado of life that is, I remember her calling me, in those witching hours after work and after school and, all the things. And she said, I want to talk to you about something. I said, okay. And she goes, but I hear the girls, I'll call you tomorrow. What's a good time for us to talk tomorrow? And I said, anytime, Mom. So she called the next day again. Everybody's rambunctious in the background. And she tried to let me go again. And I went back to my bedroom and said, Mom, what's going on? And she said, I want to tell you that I have breast cancer, but they caught it early and I don't want you to worry. And it's like she couldn't get off the phone fast enough. She didn't want to really talk about it. I don't know if she hadn't processed it herself, if she was overwhelmed by the situation she was in, not having insurance, thinking of the costs potentially associated. In later conversations we had, she used the words, I just didn't want to disappoint y'all. And those words have haunted me, that a woman would think you were disappointing your family members by having a disease. And
but stop there.
Yes.
What a lesson for any breast cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Someone's going through that. They need to hear this.
Yes.
It didn't help, really, that you weren't there with her.
No. I think you and I both know, and I think over the past 20 years, one of the biggest things that I have learned is that women need a network of support. They need a network of support to help them through this. And also, my mom was one of the strongest, most resourceful and smartest women I've ever met. So what also has haunted me is she could not figure out this situation. What were the barriers for herself that prevented her from seeking out the rose? Why wasn't she able to find access for herself? Why wasn't she having those annual mammograms, So that was another thing that has formed the trajectory of my life and professionally is that, I want to find all the women that don't know about the access, and I know you feel exactly the same way. Obviously, you've left an incredible legacy here. But what is that? Or what is that about certain women who feel like there's a stigma associated with getting help or asking for help?
But, Brooke, now seriously, we hear that over and over again. Some of the women feel like, well, I have some money, I'm capable of doing some things, but never understanding the cost of breast cancer. Totally, not just the emotional or physical, but that financial cost. But our society is not one where women ask for help. And I just think your mother's story, an intelligent, smart, able to go out and start another business, get another master's. This is someone who is savvy. I mean, but it's hard to ask for help.
Yes.
And, that is why making access to care is so important in a way that's non-threatening, in a way that lets a woman keep her dignity.
Yes.
It infuriates me that we would ever think that someone who's just down on their luck for a little bit doesn't deserve the same quality of care as any other woman.
Absolutely. And when you and I spoke, there were many things that stood out about our conversation, but one thing was when I was sharing my mom's story, you said, Brooke, the story's always the same. The story's always the same, and it is.
It is.
And I think but for the grace of God, any of us are one step away from, right? I mean,
losing our insurance,
correct.
Losing a marriage, losing our job, whatever that provides that, before we're 65 and can just have Medicare.
Absolutely.
We have so many that are diagnosed in that time period that it can mean total financial ruin and, loss of everything. But now you speak of a legacy.
Yes.
Let's talk about the legacy your mother actually left.
Yes. So, to say that my mom was a special person is, she was amazing. And so I think she instilled in all of us, and we'll talk about some of those things a little later. But for me, I did not want her story to end. I get a little emotional. On the ICU floor at MD Anderson. I did not want that to be the period to her life. I wanted her life to have a legacy that was positive, that helped other people, and that her disease and her dying was not in vain, that there could be something from all of that would help other people, would educate other people, would demystify the stigma around getting help. It completely changed the course of my life. Prior to that, my professional experience was in marketing and advertising, and I've been in the nonprofit world ever since. Like you and I talked about, people didn't come to our elementary school and say, you can be an accountant or a nurse or a secretary or a nonprofit professional. Like that wasn't a thing.
No.
The work kind of finds us. So it absolutely changed the course of my life. But like I said, I had this overwhelming feeling of I can't let her story stop here. I can't.
Now, what is it that you do in the nonprofit world now?
So currently, I am the Director of Development and Programs for the Northeast Hospital Foundation, and we have a partnership with Memorial Hermann Northeast where we provide not only breast health education, but screening mammograms, diagnostic mammograms, and ultrasounds. And then the most beautiful thing about the partnership is that we have a partnership with the Rose. And so about 50 women per year, we pay for them to come to the Rose to have their biopsy, patient navigation, any surgeries that are needed. It completes the patient care continuum. One of the best things I've ever heard you talk about, one of my favorite stories is the Rose Kushner story. And, you can educate all day long, but unless you provide access to care, what are you doing?
Right.
I think she said you're pushing women off a cliff if you don't. Yes.
Yes, she said you're taking them to the edge of the cliff to push them over.
Yes. And the partnership with the Rose has existed for almost 20 years with the organization that I currently work for. And it's so wonderful because any donor that we talk to, any person that we talk to, any patient that's nervous that we're going to provide one set of screenings and then leave them on their own, no. We then pass the baton to the Rose. We pay for those patients to have the services here so you all don't have to use, your fundraising on that. We work on our fundraising for that. But we know they're taken care of. We trust you all. We know that you're going to take care of them and navigate them into treatment and all that good stuff. So it's been an absolutely beautiful partnership for years.
And I know with your background, you understand the difference here. But when we talk about biopsies, many of our women need an excisional biopsy, which is a biopsy that you have to perform in a surgical setting,
right,
that the woman is actually under anesthetic and has an excisional, and a lot of times those are fibroadenomas, which we have discovered cancer in, or some other type of cancer that we cannot just biopsy in an outpatient setting.
Right.
So those are very expensive. I mean, it involves a surgeon, an outpatient surgery center, and anesthesiologist.
Yes.
And those were things that were the hardest for us to find for our sponsored women. We call our uninsured women that we take care of sponsored because people like you are sponsoring them.
That's right.
But that was such a gift. I mean, oh my gosh, we had so many women that needed that.
Yes.
And it is something that some women have to have before we can get a diagnosis.
Sure.
You never want to send a woman who may have a palpable lump that you really can't get that pathology from. You can't leave that there.
Right.
You know something's there. So
Yes.
you have to get that definitive diagnosis. And if it had not been for your foundation, we couldn't have served them. So, it really does take the whole community to do all this.
Yes.
No one group can do it all.
No, so if we look at just the numbers for some of our patients, so if we're sending about 50 to the Rose a year, about 12 of those women are diagnosed with cancer. So you have 38 women that are going home with incredible peace of mind.
Absolutely.
And then you are hitting the ground running, trying to save the lives of those other 12 patients.
That is so true.
Yeah. Yes.
People say to me all the time, I want to start a nonprofit, and I always say it's going to depend on your partners.
Yes.
Your success will
Yes.
always depend
Yes.
on who is there to work with you to get
Absolutely.
this done. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to Mom.
Okay.
And, that was a very short period of time. I just realized she's diagnosed in 2004.
And she died in 2005. 18 months.
That you never expected that.
Never
of
expected
course,
that.
because of the way it was presented to you.
Correct.
But,
And also,
yeah.
I was not educated at all at the time. And I don't know if she shared her diagnosis with us. She had triple negative breast cancer. I don't know that we talked about those things.
Very rare.
Very rare.
Yes.
I do know
at that
now.
age.
Yes.
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 You have to process this in
Yes.
many different ways.
I don't think I processed it until maybe 10 years after she passed away. I think it took me a while. You know, there are certain times of your life where you're in survival mode. I think when you work and have small children and all the things, you're in that survival mode of life. Also, I was young. You know, I was 29, 30. I was 30 when she passed away. And so sometimes life experience gives you the wisdom and the reflection to be able to really process and understand situations. But I threw myself into this work and tried to educate myself along the way. And you know, another thing that has stood out to me was if this could happen to our family and this could happen to my mom, who I viewed as, you know, so smart, strong, and resourceful, it could happen to anybody. And so, but yes, I was terrified when she was diagnosed because we had no family history of breast cancer. My grandparents were still alive. My great-grandmother lived to be 95. So in the back of my head, I never really thought we were going to lose her. And, you know, before things kind of took a turn, her hair was growing back. You know, we kind of felt like maybe we're on the other side of this, you know. But she had some complications at the end with pneumonia and other things where the pneumonia took precedence to treating the cancer.
And it happens.
Yeah. Yes.
The system is so fragile at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, it happens. But still, never time to process. That's something that I hope everyone hears that. You know, your children have to go through this journey with you. It is a family affair.
It is.
Anywhere you go. Now, she also left the rose with a very nice legacy. And do you know all of that story? Or
I know some of the story. Okay. I know some of the story. So after my parents divorced, her boyfriend, partner at the time, had two twin boys, and obviously she made a huge impact on their lives as well. She's a very special person. And, you know, after Mom died, Mike called me one evening and said, "You're not going to believe this, but the pink goat just sold for, you know, whatever." And it was another one of those moments where I was like, the pink goat, what? So Palmer, his son, was very involved in FFA and spray painted the goat pink in tribute to Mom and wanted to donate the proceeds to the rose. So that is what I know of the story, but I would like for you to piggyback off of that and talk about the legacy.
Again, just like you, pink goat, what? But it started a year before that.
Okay.
Because Palmer had an auction for his heifer.
Okay.
And at that auction, and he said, "This is not, you know, the livestock show and all of that in Pasadena. That is for your college education, and whatever you get at the auction, you apply to that." So when he brought his heifer out, he said, "I am doing this for my stepmom." You know, I always thought that was so respectful. He never thought of her as anything but a stepmom.
Yes.
And he said, "I want to give this money to the Rose." Well, this is a 16-year-old boy, you know, that is saying, "I want to help these other women because the Rose is helping my mom."
Yeah.
And that sold for $11,500.
That's right. That was
so, you know, the first time I ever heard anything about Palmer was he's got this heifer that he just auctioned off, and I never heard his name. You know, it's an unusual name. And then the next year, my board member, Bob Domek, calls, and he is out of breath. He is excited. He is in tears. He was in tears. Yeah. And he said, "Palmer just did this. Palmer just did this, and it's $150,000.
Yes.
And I'm going, "Did what? Did what?" And he said, "Well, he has this pink goat, and it just raised $115,000. And I'm going, "Wait a minute. Where? What are you talking about?"
Yes.
Some of my staff were at the auction, and they were all in tears.
Yes.
And he literally did paint Poncho pink.
Yes.
And Dixie wound up with Poncho.
No.
Yes. And raised all that money. But the auctioneer started it with, if this young man can do this for our community and the women in our community, I expect this crowd to step up. And he started the bidding at $11,500.
Oh.
He didn't let it start at 1,000.
Yes.
And before you knew it was 50, and then it was 75. And oh my gosh,
It's an amazing
they have
story.
never, ever had anything auctioned for that much
I'm
money,
sure.
ever.
No.
And again, it was like, that was his college education.
Yes. Yes.
Now, Carla had died at that point.
Yes.
And he was real clear. You know, I know Palmer was the most modest
Yes.
kid I have ever met. But he said, I know my stepmom would have wanted this, and I know that she doesn't want anyone else to not have care, to not be treated.
Sure.
And so he led us on a journey. Okay, from that
Yes.
started the Pink Goat Society.
So I don't know about this.
So we were all in such awe of Palmer. I mean, he would come and tell the story and talk to the TV and radio. I mean, he was just always ready and willing to do whatever we needed. And someone, it may have been Bob Domek, said, we need to take this and use it to create some kind of group that supports a rose.
Yes.
Again, if a 17-year-old could do this,
Yeah.
you know, our community needs to step up. And so for $1,000, now you got to remember this back in 2006.
Yes.
You know, that's a lot of money. But for $1,000, you too could be a part of the Pink Goat Society.
Yes.
And we had so much, you know,
Yes.
so many things that we created for them. We had a really great donor who wouldn't let us spend money on like T-shirts or any of that stuff. And we would call together the Pink Goat Society in the first year.
Yes.
We raised $80,000.
Wow.
In the
Wow.
first year.
That's incredible.
And that group stayed for about 5 years, every year renewing,
Yes.
bringing more in.
Yes.
You know, where we were in 2006, that was a godsend.
Sure.
We did not have many donors at that level.
Yes.
I think we went from 7 to 65 or something like overnight.
Wow.
It was, and many of them stayed with us. In fact, the lady that was involved in that, Ray Senor, was just such a go-getter. And, you know, like many programs, 5 years is about to run of it.
Sure.
But it was, without a doubt, one of our most special memories.
Yes.
Just amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. And I know that Palmer went on to go to college and, you know, was a success.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, your mom left a lot of
Yes.
people better off because
Well,
of her experience.
That's a beautiful way to say it. And I think that was the goal. And that was, you know, when you lose someone, and I think in any way, whether it's cancer or a tragedy, you know, it's hard for us to really process what that means and where do I go from here, especially when it's someone like a parent. You know, you just have one mom, and you know, it just completely changes your life. So I think that for me, and I think for Palmer as well, I don't want to speak for him, but for me, it was a very positive way to grieve. And like I said, not make the period end at the ICU at MD Anderson, but have, you know, her legacy live on, but also utilize it where her death was not in vain, that we're able to maybe change the lives of some women that, you know, may be in her place, you know. True. Someone asked me one time, her mom was a 2-time breast cancer survivor, and she said, don't you ever get angry that she's not here? And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I've ever been angry. I'm just more sad. And she said, does it make you angry sometimes to do this work, that someone didn't do the work before you to save her? And I said, no, that's never occurred to me, you know? I just believe that everything has to happen for a reason. You can't get caught up in that, and you have to do something positive with the legacy.
So true. But I do want you to remember, at that time, we didn't know a lot about triple negative.
Yes.
And in fact, today when we hear that, we go, and then we realize, oh, no, it's a different time.
Yes.
So as quickly as all that moved, it's very hard to find triple negative early. So, you know.
You did tell me that when we spoke, not to cut you off, you did tell me that when we spoke, and it did give me a little bit of peace and a little bit of comfort, because as you do, my sister and I so many times have said, like, well, why weren't we asking her if she was getting her annual mammogram? Well, we were in our 20s,
You weren't thinking of that. No.
So, yes.
And honestly, she was what, 50-ish?
She was 48.
48.
When she was diagnosed.
Yeah, she might have had 2 or 3. She might have had none. But at that time, again, 20 years ago, women, that wasn't top of mind.
Yes.
So, and like you said, especially if you find yourself without insurance, it may be the time that you're not going to think too much about it. So I know you talked about your sister's come ever since then.
Yes.
Anything else that you or your sister have done to be real aware of your
definitely.
risk?
Yes. So we're vigilant about those annual screenings. We both had genetic testing. We're both negative for the gene.
All good, all good.
Yes.
Yes.
All good things. And I think personally that's it. I try to, live a healthy lifestyle. Reducing stress is the main thing that I need to work on. But yes, stress reduction.
I sincerely believe, my personal opinion only, is that the world we live in today doesn't allow us much time to get rid of that. And that takes such a toll on our bodies. It is. We have nowhere to go to knock out the noise, to quieten it. Yes. Another thing that I wondered was, and you kind of alluded to this, but did you ever think there was anything else that could have changed her course?
Besides finding the rose sooner? I don't, that's the only thing. That's the only thing that really sticks out in my mind. If she had found the rose sooner, was having those annual mammograms, because I feel sure, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel sure that she probably hadn't had her annual screening in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
I think it had been a while.
Yeah, and again, that is part of the work that we're doing right now to try and change that. And if we do for one woman, then I have a feeling your mom's up there going, good.
Yes,
Good
absolutely.
for you. So what is the one thing that you would want to, and I don't know if it's going to be one thing, Brooke, something you want to convey to our listeners, leave them with as a daughter, and then as a woman who is now in this field working very hard, what would you want our listeners to hear?
So the thing that sticks out to me the most is for women to put their own selves on their own to-do lists. I hear from women who are insured or uninsured, women that are diagnosed with cancer, women that speak at events that are insured, that say, I haven't had my mammogram in the past 2 years because I'm just too busy. I'm traveling for work. My kids are on all these, great traveling teams. I feel like us as women, for whatever reason, we do not put ourselves on that to-do list, and we do not make our health a priority. Not everyone, but I feel like it happens. So that's the number one thing that sticks out to me. The second thing is reducing the stigma with needing help when you need it. That's why these services are here. Get the help. Have that annual mammogram. And then for us all to be advocates, not only for ourselves, but for the other women in our lives. Ask your sisters, your coworkers, your aunts, are you having your annual screening? And then, other than that, it's just knowing that the access to care is out there, knowing that the Rose is out there, knowing that our program is out there, Project Mammogram, for women to go and have those screenings if they need them.
Yes. So important. I've never heard it said that way. Put yourself on the to-do list. We all have those.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure I didn't make that up. I'm sure I heard it from someone else. But so whoever originally said
it's
that.
Okay. It's the first time on this show, so that's a record.
Yes, because I feel like that is a common thread between women who are insured or uninsured. It's, it's not making yourself a priority. It's not making sure, this same woman that spoke, who had insurance, who hadn't had her mammogram in a couple of years. Well, her kids are going for their annual, checkups, their dentist appointments every 6 months, all of those things are being taken care of, but she was not taking care of herself. Too busy with work, too busy with family, I don't know why we do that. I don't know why, but
But it is something we need to work on
Yes.
changing. Because if we're not there, our family is not going to get that
Not
care.
good to anyone.
And
No.
I so relate with you as a grown woman who has not had her mother around in a long, long time. You know, we miss them when they leave. But I think as you get older, you realize there's no one there
I know.
for those times when
Yes.
it's so special or you really just wish you had a hug
Yes.
or any of that kind of
Yes,
thing.
it's going to make me very emotional. It's the it's the good times, it's the celebrations that they're not a part of, but it's just the daily conversations also. Yeah.
We want to keep every woman healthy and alive.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. For sure.
Thank you for the good work you're doing. Thank you for sharing today. I know this was very personal,
Yes.
but you said some fabulous things and hopefully things that our listeners really heard.
I hope so. Well, thank you.
I really think that the last thing you said about if you tell your friends, you know, your
Yes.
girlfriends, be sure they're
Yes.
doing what they need to do.
Yes.
Nobody has that influence on us like our girlfriends.
Oh, no, for sure, for sure. And thank you not only for having me, but for the wonderful work that you're doing. The groundbreaking, incredible legacy that you all have started and continued here at the Rose. It's truly remarkable. No, it is.
So
It
sweet
really
of you.
is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish, it's essential.